So this quote, I'm sure people have read this quote before. I personally love this quote. The first rule of any technology used in a business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will make it more efficient. When it gets applied to an inefficient operation, it just magnifies it. And I think the reason I'm a little bit frustrated about the hype that's going on right now in the marketplace around marketing automation is that we're just cycling through what we've done since the dawn of technology. And the same thing, you know, new tool will come out to automate a new function in a business, and it'll become an industry to itself. And we'll talk in a minute about a number of reasons why marketing automation is getting so much publicity right now. But it just comes back to, if you don't have a good operation to start with, you're just going to go apply technology to something that's already broken. So we want to encourage people to fix it first and then see where the opportunity is. So the sad reality, it's not the sad reality, but it's the truth. Revenue builds a business. Revenue is what matters. Revenue is what all CEOs are looking for. But the time, money, and resources dedicated by many companies to truly understand the buying and sales process of a prospect is misunderstood, underinvested, and poorly managed in most businesses. And because of that, when you then bring a tool and you try to apply that tool to what you're doing, it's really not going to work for you. And then you're going to get blamed. And then the CEO is going to say, we spent all this money, why doesn't this work? And some people have a hard time coming back and pointing to where the part of the process is. And so this is what I really want to point out. The part of the process that really matters is understanding the buying and sales process of your customer and making sure that your company understands that reality and is willing to invest in that first and foremost. That's the investment that has to be made. Okay? Marketing automation does not solve the problem of understanding the buying and sales process. It magnifies it. It can magnify it in a positive way, or it can magnify it in a negative way. If you start automating things in your business and sending out a ton of autoresponders when somebody registers for something on your website or subscribes to a campaign, and that hasn't been thought through in who that person is and how they want to receive information, all of the good work that you might have done to capture that group of people in the first place will be lost if it's not managed properly, because they'll unsubscribe and they'll say, this company doesn't know what they're doing. This company's sending me stuff they shouldn't be sending. I don't want to hear from them anymore. And you've done yourself more harm than good in that process. And the missing ingredient, the missing gap, is the space between what you know about your customer and what your customer needs to know to buy from you. And that gap is huge, and it's unknown, and the only way to close that gap is to test and to have a good content plan and to be able to test. That's the only way you can make it better. So let's put marketing automation in context for a second. So marketing automation is not a new thing. I've already mentioned a couple of things. CRM, content management systems, even the first generation of websites. There was lots of web developers scrambling to build these proprietary platforms to allow people to post their own content. Then along came tools like WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, and they created an industry standard for open source content management systems and how we could publish content. So those aren't new. There is a ton of functionality, and we're going to talk about that in a second, in WordPress itself that people don't realize. WordPress is a pretty slick marketing automation tool when used properly. And then there's been email marketing tools that have been around forever. Even when companies like Salesforce.com tried to figure out how to add email marketing platforms to their software. And you know, Constant Contact, it's the granddaddy at, what have they been, 8 or 9 years in the market? And we're saying they're one of the granddaddies in email marketing. Makes me laugh. But anyway, there's a lot of tools out there. So this is nothing new. These tools have been here for a while. So let's just quickly, according to Wikipedia, the almighty Wikipedia, here's the definition of marketing automation. And I think this is a pretty good definition. Our team sort of brainstormed this, and we had kind of a feisty conversation around what we believe the definition to be, because there's what Wikipedia describes as a basic definition of marketing automation, and then there's the marketing co-pilot bun fight that goes on when we argue about what it is and isn't. So we think it refers to software platforms and technologies designed for marketing departments and organizations to more effectively market on multiple channels. And I think this is where we're starting to get into what's new about it. What's the hype? Well, 2 years ago, suddenly the business community in general started to say, what should we be doing with these things called LinkedIn and Twitter and social media? What should we be doing with things like, paid industry sites? What should we be doing with? You're starting to see all these online channels that we hadn't seen before. And so people were now trying to figure out how to bring all that together. The next part that Wikipedia describes is marketing departments, consultants, and part-time marketing employees benefit by specifying criteria and outcomes and tasks and processes which are then interpreted, stored, and executed by software, which increases efficiency and reduces human error. That's the part of that I love. Yeah, I don't quite know how the tools can reduce to human error, but the beginning part of that statement, I think, is represented in the room today. And everybody, whether we're working for a company, we're a consultant, we're all struggling a little bit with this. The use of marketing automation to streamline sales and marketing organizations by replacing high-touch, repetitive, and manual processes with automated solutions. So I think this comes back to the Bill Gates quote that all sounds great, but if all you're doing is automating a bad process to start with or bad content to start with, you haven't really solved very much. But I just thought it was good for us to sort of take a minute and make sure that there's agreement in the room about what is the actual definition of marketing automation, and I think this is a pretty good one. We then started to brainstorm as a group, what is it not? And this is what's going to get to why we feel there's too much hype around it right now and that there's just some fundamentals and basics that people should be getting right. It can't think for you. Like all technology, garbage in, garbage out. It's not going to think for you and tell you your customer would like this. The person you're trying to close a deal with tomorrow would actually like to receive this information right now. It's not going to tell you that. It doesn't provide a strategy for you. Doesn't tell you what the strategy is around your content. It doesn't know your customer. It doesn't know who you're selling to. It's just automating processes. It can't create content for you. And as much as there's some tools out there today in the content marketing space, Contently, Zappos, there's some really amazing tools that we've looked at in the last little while. At the end of the day, they still can't build good content for you. You have to do that. It's not an analytical brain, so even though it might be providing reports, there's some good dashboards on some of the tools we've looked at, somebody still has to figure out what's the delta between this campaign and why. All right, so that still has to happen. And if you don't get the results you're looking for, it won't tell you what to do next. All right, so these are all the things that we need to bring to the table. And this is why, on the one hand, I'm frustrated with the hype around marketing automation, but I'm excited about it. I'm very excited because finally now that emphasis is being put on the marketing team and what the marketing team can do for a business as opposed to just being seen as an expense in the business. And that's why I'm excited. So I believe it's an opportunity, and I think it's a huge opportunity for everyone. It's a huge opportunity to gain insight, to have data that we never had before, because there's some tools out there that kind of borderline scary as to what they track and what they do when somebody hits your website. It's an opportunity to automate a process, but it's not a silver bullet that solves your marketing problem. So that's why when a client calls us and says, I got a demo from so-and-so and it looks fantastic and it's only $500 a month. Should we buy it and implement it right now? It's like, no, you've got a lot of other things you have to fix first. This is not a silver bullet. And I think that's a good place to start if somebody says to you, I'd like you to implement marketing automation for our business. We're going to talk a little bit about the questions you should ask before you embark on that journey. This is a new picture that our team created, and we're still evolving it a little bit, so bear with me. But we really believe that the gray zone of marketing automation is right here, the buyer map and the steps to purchasing. We have not seen a system to date that maps that allows you to build that out, And it's almost a little bit of the hybrid between what we have seen certain sales automation tools like Salesforce.com, NetSuite, even Microsoft Dynamics. They're trying to take a basic approach to sales and say, here's the steps that most companies use in the sales process that you would want to document. And people are trying to do the same thing on the marketing automation side. Here's why that doesn't work. There might be some really great best practices in the sales process, but on the marketing side, your customer is unique to you and what you sell, and their buyer behavior is unique to what you're selling, and therefore one size does not fit all. You really need to understand how your buyer is buying. And that's why we think this is the gray zone that everybody leaps to, what does the tool do? And they don't ask that question. But what is my buyer doing to get here? And therefore, what do I need to provide to them through the process? And therefore, then what do I need to automate? So we've kind of looked at it from the perspective that you've got your customers and your prospects in the industry out there. They're all coming likely via your website that they got to, maybe from other online channels. Maybe they read an article and then they clicked through to your website. Maybe they saw you in LinkedIn and they clicked through to your website. And that's the funnel from which you can direct them through the buyer map and through the buyer process. And then you're serving up content through inbound tactics, outbound tactics, and your database segmentation. But that gray zone is what we think you need to tackle and really understand before you decide you want marketing automation. Does that kind of make sense? Does everybody somewhat agree with that? Okay. So we believe that if you don't have a clear and tested value proposition, if you don't have a well-mapped buyer process, content for each step of the buying process, defined metrics that confirm what success look like, and it could be just as simple as who opened, who clicked through, how many tweets did I get, a well-organized testing program and expertise, resources, and dedicated time, then marketing automation is a waste of time and money for your business. It doesn't mean you have to have it all out the gate, but you need to be thinking about this, and you need to make sure that throughout the program you're going to run, you have a really good handle on how you're getting this. Because otherwise what's going to happen is 12 months later, the CFO is going to come to you and say, we just spent X amount of dollars on a new system. What did it do for us this year? And you're not going to be able to answer that question.